All right, parents, here we go again. It's the Ask Dr. Tony episode. This is the Experience Miracles podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, an expert in pediatrics, neurodevelopmental disorders, and drug-free, nervous system-focused healthcare. On this weekly episode, I'll be addressing the top questions on every parent's mind. If there's one thing we love and welcome, it's parents who never stop learning, asking the hard questions, and advocating for your kiddos like none other. So get ready for some real talk, real-life clinical and parenting experience, and real easy to understand answers that will help your family take action and get to that next level of health and healing. You ask, I answer. Let's dive into today's episode. All right, parents, let's go through this familiar scene. It's the middle of the night and you're jolted awake by your child's warm forehead, flushed cheeks, and general discomfort. Your heart races as you look for the thermometer and look to confirm what you probably already know. Your child is sick and has a fever. Like most parents, your instinct might be to immediately reach for that fever-reducing medication. But what if everything we've been taught about fevers is actually incomplete and not totally correct? Did you know that fever-reducing medications might actually prolong the illness in some cases? What if that elevated temperature isn't an enemy that needs to be fought off, but an intelligent healing process orchestrated by your child's brain and nervous system and actively fights off infection, activates and supercharges the rest of the immune system, and does a very important job? Today, we're going to break down and reframe how you understand fevers and give you both the confidence and the knowledge to support your child's natural healing abilities rather than just suppressing them or stuffing them down with medications. Knowing how to handle a fever is something many parents wrestle with. I know I did for sure when my kids were little and I was first getting into this natural health, nervous system focused chiropractic space and really understanding how the body, how the brain, how the nervous system, and how the immune system really work and how essential fever is to the full, not only during that acute infection, but to the long-term health, immune system, resilience building process as well. But for sure, it's something we wrestle with on the regular because on one hand, we have that traditional pediatrician, medical view, urgent care, which says, hey, let's get these fever-reducing medications going on the regular, antibiotics, corticosteroids, they're no big deal, keep using them. But then on the other hand, we have our parental gut instincts and common sense that tells us it is actually pretty normal for kids to get sick. And having a fever here and there to go with teething or a cold or the flu is pretty normal. And maybe we should support the body naturally versus short-circuiting the work it's trying to do. Ultimately, how we handle these fevers really does play a role in whether our children develop strong and robust immune systems or go down the road that is all too common these days, one that leaves them with a suppressed, dysfunctional, and weakened immune system over time, and therefore at more risk of long-term chronic health issues like asthma, allergies, and so forth. Let's dive into the role that fever really plays both in acute illness and developing our immune systems over time, and get you some strategies on how to support your child through a fever, through an infection, through an illness, safely, naturally, and in a way that doesn't always need medications and interventions. All right, for just a second here, let's break down the statistics that really show us what's happening with fever and how the medical system is really mismanaging it before we get into the neuroscience behind it. Fevers account for approximately 1/3 of all pediatric office visits in the United States. That's millions of worried parents rushing their kids to the doctors or urgent care each year. What's even more concerning is that in a survey, 1 in 3 parents reported administering fever-reducing medications for temperatures below 100.4, which technically isn't even a fever. Digging into that really reveals that there's a widespread misunderstanding about what fevers actually are and the important role that they play in healing. And again, one more time right out of the gates, building strong immune systems long term. Most parents have been conditioned to view any elevation in temperature as dangerous, but when in reality, research increasingly shows us that moderate fevers are a beneficial part of the immune response and can actually help children recover faster when properly supported. All right, time to get nerdy. Fever cannot be looked at in a vacuum. It's not just an elevated temperature, it's a sophisticated neuroimmune response orchestrated by your child's brain, nervous system, and immune system, which are obviously intricately connected, as we talk about all the time, through the vagus nerve and through these nervous system channels. The simple way I like to tell parents how important and how essential a fever is to getting over an illness as quickly, as completely, and as effectively as possible is the fever is the bat signal to the rest of the immune system. So fever is really specifically modulated through something called the hypothalamus, which is the body's thermostat. And when a child's immune system detects pathogens, so bad guys, bacteria, viruses that aren't supposed to be in there, it releases these chemicals called pyrogens that signal the hypothalamus to raise the body's temperature. And there's a whole kind of neurochemical cascade that happens there. And then there's many more layers of that neurochemical cascade, which act as that bat signal to call out the hero, the immune system, and say, hey, you've got work to do. There's bad guys in here. So the fever does a lot of work on its own. We'll get into that next. The fever is designed to cook off the bad guys, but it's not all that it does. The fever also signals so many other good guys. It activates the Army, it activates the Navy, it activates the Marines, and it says, hey, let's get to work. Let's get these bad guys, these pathogens out of here. So that intentional, very important increase in temperature is something that's completely different than dangerous overheating that occurs from something like heat stroke. So it's natural when your kiddo is sick and has a fever to really look at the one thing that you feel like you can control, which is the fever, and put something into action there. But that one thing that is a very integral, but just one part of the whole neuroimmune response, if we mess with that one thing, we mess with the whole thing. And actually, when a child is teething, going through a cold, catches a virus, is working through, I don't call it catching because that's not really how getting sick works, but they're getting sick. They need to get through it naturally, neurologically, efficiently on their own to get stronger on the other side and not only beat off that current illness, but learn from it and get stronger long term. So again, fever is a key component of actively coordinating a complex immune response to eliminate the pathogens, restore the body back to health. And you know what else really happens here as fever kicks in these other immune system processes is there's a memory to this, there's a learning to this, there's a strengthening to this. And that's the second point on the science behind fevers. There's all sorts of powerful benefits that many parents don't know because the pediatrician or the call-in line or the urgent and emergency care or the little minute clinics that sometimes, we're told to take our kids to in these scenarios, they don't take the time because what pediatrician conventionally or emergency system really conventionally takes the time to educate us on what's really going on with our kids' bodies and their immune systems. And in this case with fevers, it not only inhibits these pathogens, these bacteria and viruses from replicating and growing, because again, once you get the body temperature hot enough, you can not only kind of burn off the bad guys that aren't supposed to be in there, but you can stop more of them from being replicated. And that's one of the most important things that comes with fever, is that even a modest increase in temperature can slow the replication and reproduction and spread of the bad guys. That's why if you kind of flip this on its head and say, well, what if we do just right away at 99, 100, 101? What if we bring that fever right down, Tylenol, Motrin, or so forth? Well, now you're going to actually open up the channels for the bad guys to replicate and spread. That's why so often, yes, it may make a child, it's going to make a child feel better. It's going to make a parent feel better or a provider to feel better or all the above if we can just force that number down with medications on the thermometer. But what it's doing on the inside is it's increasing the likelihood that this infection spreads and goes longer in the majority of cases. And again, as with every conversation, with everything, each and every child needs to be treated individually and taken care of in a very personalized case. So we're going to go through here in a little bit some other signs and things to watch for to figure out, hey, is this a fever that we can let it ride, or is this a fever we don't need to mess with? We'll give you those factors next. But again, those higher temperatures really enhance immune function. They accelerate white blood cell production and increase their mobility and their effectiveness. So research has really shown shown that fevers increase the number of circulating white blood cells, neutrophils, and very important components of fighting off that infection and illness and getting stronger on the other side. So there's so many benefits to the fever acting all on its own. And then again, one of my favorite things to teach parents about fever is it really is the bat signal. It's really kind of that APB sent out, all points bulletin sent out to the rest of the immune system to say, hey, get to work. We've got work to do. And it increases it. It organizes it. It orchestrates it. Fever is essential in so many ways. So what factors can throw fever and the immune system function off track? Well, when a child's fever patterns, meaning do they spike fevers, high fevers easily? Or on the other side, do they struggle to develop fevers when fighting infections? And do they have this kind of persistent low-grade fever? Those are real big signs of nervous system dysfunction. If a child's fever skyrockets real quick, real fast all the time, that is a sign of dysregulation and dysfunction within their nervous system and immune system. And that's actually the thing that needs to be handled. We're going to go into that next. Same with, and we see this all of the time with our children with autism and chronic autoimmune challenges. They actually do not develop fevers. They do not sweat when they get hot. These are absolute signs, not just of MTHFR and COMP. There's a lot of functional medicine conversation that can go in here, but there's something deeper than even that. There is a neuroimmune system breakdown of communication and dysfunction and dysregulation, because when a kid is sick, when they are fighting off a virus and a bacteria, there should be a fever. There should be sweating. There should be natural detox happening. And if they don't get a fever when they're sick, that's a sign of deeper layers of dysfunction. And so if your child's fever response, or what we call fever patterns, are excessive or suppressive, it is a sign of underlying nervous system dysfunction and dysregulation that throw that off track. And again, as we talk about all the time here on our platform, it's the perfect storm, it's subluxation, it's those sort of things that are often, very often, if not all the time, the underlying factor that will cause that. Okay, so we wouldn't be complete in this fever conversation if we didn't get into the part that says, when are we in the danger zone? When does it warrant medical attention? Now, the toughest conversation with fevers is because there is multiple factors that need to all be factored in play per child, per illness, per fever, and every kiddo needs to be treated and cared for individually and personalized, and have real, true, best advice given that way, and best action or lack of action, if we're not going to need to reduce it, given that way. That's what makes this tough. Whenever we write an article, do a video, rock a podcast episode about fevers, it's hard to put the appropriate level of disclaimers in here, because this is not how we work in practice. We always assess that child's entire, complete, in the moment scenario before making recommendations and saying, okay, if this, then that, or if that, then this. And so this part right here, I want you to know, it's none of what I'm about to list on my bullet points is a hard and fast rule. But as you kind of put this all together, consider this like an algorithm and a decision-making matrix that says, okay, if multiple factors are moving into the danger zone, moving into the red zone, okay, we got to handle that one. We got to get with the pediatrician. We got to get with medical intervention. We got to probably get with medication and get that taken care of. And then in the other direction, it's true too. If we go through some of these things that are more of like, okay, this and this and this are factors that warrant medical attention. If you don't have those, if you have the opposite of those, if you have some signs we'll go through in a minute where your kiddo is handling the fever well, they're handling the fever well, okay? So while fevers are generally beneficial, certain situations do require professional care and intervention. Any fever in an infant under 3 months and above 102.2 in that 3 to 6 month range, the truth is this, the younger, so kind of that first 3 to 6 months, that's the time where we're still learning How is your infant's nervous system, immune system, fever system functioning? So those are the times when a child is really little. They still have a long ways to go to build up the total functionality of their immune system. So that first 6 months is definitely one where you want to be consulting with your provider. Now, here's what's cool. Your provider in that sentence doesn't need to be the traditional Western medicine where you know what you're going to get. Take it down, antibiotic, medication. Your provider in consultation and conversation and figuring this out can be a nervous system focused pediatric chiropractor. It could be a holistic integrative nurse practitioner. It doesn't have to be the pediatrician hotline. It doesn't have to be emergency care and crisis care. So a message, a kind of lesson I can teach within this fever conversation is, who do you call first? Who is your first line of conversation to figure out what your first line of defense or offense, so what you're going to do or not do to help your child get through an illness? And this is one of the things within this that I knew I would get to that might be the most influential, impactful thing with your family. If you only have Western medicine on the dial, you're going to get medication pretty much every single time. You're going to get fear, you're going to get anxiety, you're going to get judgment, you're not going to get a lot of education, you're not going to get individualized care for the most part. And again, I'm generalizing because that's how most of it is. You're going to get a cookie cutter approach. Oh, fever down. Symptoms, antibiotic. So you're not going to get a very personalized, customized approach. Now, if you have a traditional medically trained pediatrician who takes the time to do deeper conversations, gets into empowering and true informed consent conversations with you, does in-depth examinations, and considers all factors instead of just the fever and the number when your child gets sick, you have a unicorn. And that is awesome. And you should celebrate the fact that you have that medical provider on your team. But when I'm getting this content out to the world, we have to speak to the reality of what most families face. And so when I go through this list, it doesn't mean that the first person you consult with to figure out whether you need medical attention is the pediatrician or the medical system. All of the time, the majority of the time when our kids, our patients in our practice are sick, they come to us first. They connect with us first. They call us, they text our office first, and we can work. We know that child so well. We can work into the details and we can make the best recommendations for that kiddo, not based on some hard and fast number or rule that doesn't really exist and doesn't apply to every child. And you know what? There's a lot of times that we evaluate because we are trained as doctors as first line of defense. We know physical diagnosis. We know all of the things to go through. And there's all sorts of scenarios where we say, hey, your kid's up against it with this one. Get to the pediatrician, get to the urgent care, get to fever, reduction on this one. That is a conversation that we have on a certain percentage of time with our parents. Do you know what percentage it is that we feel like they need to go get intervention compared to the time where we evaluate with experience and neuroscientific understanding, that we evaluate the situation and say, hey, this is one you likely want to let ride and do its job? There's a lot more of that, the latter, than the former. So, okay, I had to really go into that rant because anytime I look at the numbers on the nose, as I have listed in my notes, that's just not the most important thing. The number itself, I want you to know this, the number itself is not the most important thing. The next couple of things are. If your child has accompanying signs like super lethargic, they are toast, they are literally barely moving, they are barely responding, they are in a bad way. Now, this is key. And a child is sick and not feeling good, they're not going to be probably running around and full of energy. So we're talking about the extreme, just exhaustion, lethargic, non-responsive, difficulty breathing. You can tell their heart rate and their respiratory rate are through the roof. They've got a severe headache. They complain of neck stiffness with headache or pain. And this is a big one. They refuse to drink anything that could therefore increase their risk of dehydration, or they develop a rash that just doesn't fade at all when pressed, meaning, okay, there's something actually going on. If it's just a heat rash and you can kind of change the blood flow, it'll fade. But if that list, let me go through it again, severely shut down, disconnected, lethargic, difficulty breathing, rapid heart rate, rapid breathing, headache, neck stiffness, refusal to drink. That's a big one. That's the biggest one. That could increase the risk of dehydration because they're sick. Their body's fighting something off. They're going into a fever. They might need that fever, but if they're not drinking anything, that's trouble. That's the list you want to look at. And again, even if our kids face, I shouldn't say again because I haven't covered this yet, even if your kiddo, you are the most natural, granola, holistic, chiropractic family out there, your kiddos are going to go through immune challenges. And real, strong, real life immune challenges include fevers. So if your kiddo gets sick and their fever and all these other factors start to enter into the red zone and the not cool territory, and you need medical intervention, do not think that would invalidate the premise that fevers themselves are beneficial. As I've said, hopefully 50 times on this one, every kid deserves their own unique, personalized decision and action or lack of action in each and every illness and every single scenario. So not only does each kiddo deserve personalized and individualized care, each infection, each illness, each scenario deserves that as well, because they might handle different ones. And that is just how it works with different viruses and bacteria, how the body can handle it. Thankfully, remember, our kids are designed to be healthy. There is generations of genetic neuroimmune programming into your kiddos. And especially if you live a natural, healthy lifestyle. Let's play out the opposite of the perfect storm, which is the not ideal scenario. Let's say pregnancy journey was great. Let's say labor and delivery had no intervention. Let's say you breastfed and had that incredible nutrition and no neuro co-regulation connection. Let's say your kiddo, looking at their, again, individual case history, they've got a strong immune system. Well, they're probably going to be able to handle most of these without intervention, and they're only going to get stronger as a result. But I also want to play this out before we're all done. If your child has been sick often and you don't trust their immune system so much, it actually gets a little bit trickier into this fever conversation, because at a certain point, you really want to start working with nervous system focused chiropractic. You really want to start working with natural health experts to rebuild and restore the function of their immune system and their neuroimmune system and how their body handles infections and fevers and pathogens. Because at a certain point, if every time they get a fever, we stuff it down. Every time they get sick, they get over-the-counter medications, antibiotics, corticosteroids, nebulizers, inhalers, they're not going to get stronger and healthier long-term. They're at a greater risk of continuing to get sicker and sicker. So last thing to cover on this one. I know it's a beast, but this is an essential conversation for every parent, and the general pediatrician and the medical system is not going to give you all this information. So I intended to go pretty deep into this one. The last thing I want to cover, and by the way, as always, we have incredible articles, PDF guides on our website. You can click the link in our bio. It's probably going to come along with this wherever you're watching this, listening to this. You'll be able to dig into this. And we have an incredible article all about fevers and how to understand them and support them naturally. And we also have some incredible guides called Raising Healthy Kids Naturally, Nature's Medicine Cabinet. Here's what I'm saying. Comment below if you want some of these resources. Go to our DMs if you want some of these resources and just ask for them, or go to our link. And I know you moms and dads listening in, you are savvy Instagram help my kid resource finders. So go to the link, go to our websites, and you'll be able to find these things. Because again, I'm going through them on here, but I want you, sometimes it's really cool to just find those articles, find those guides, print them out, have them in a drawer, put them on a magnet on the fridge, because our kids do get sick, they do get fevers, and having this stuff literally written out right in front of you will really help to calm your nervous system and make these decisions here. So last thing on this kind of TED Talk all about fevers, understanding them and taking care of them naturally. Here's how you support your child's fever without suppressing it. Focus entirely on rest and hydration. You can use room temperature water, dilute with some electrolyte drinks, some Element, what did I just lose? One of my favorite ones. Goodness gracious, I just lost the one I drink all the time. It's not actually Element, it's a different brand, but there's all sorts of really great electrolyte little packets and brands that are out there. Look for organic, chemical free. You don't want them to be really just, chemicals going into your kid's system. So choose a good brand without artificial colors. You can look at herbal teas for older children, homemade popsicles that have this stuff. So you could take, the Element, or oh my goodness, I cannot believe I can't think of the one I love. You can take these different ones and you can make homemade popsicles with them as well, which is something kids love in that way, and it helps them get hydrated and get those electrolytes. Create a healing environment where that extra rest, comfortable room temperature, lightweight clothing, light blankets can be easily removed when they get hot or added on when they kind of switch up and get cold. You can do a real lukewarm water bath to kind of help that water. The water is just soothing and comforting. Definitely avoid cold baths where they're going to be shivering, and then the body has to raise the core temperature even more. And then most importantly, when your child has a fever, get them into your pediatric and family chiropractor and have them be checked for subluxation and dysfunction and adjusted if out of balance, because if they are subluxated and they are out of balance, that will interfere with that organization, that orchestration, and that coordination of this whole neuroimmune response that we've been talking about all the time. When the nervous system is optimized after these adjustments, that communication between the brain and the body, between the nervous system, the immune system, between the hypothalamus, all the things that we could cover and more. If subluxation and nervous system dysfunction is in the way, you can't trust that stuff to work as well. If you get your child adjusted, now you can trust the body, the nervous system, the brain-body connection, and the immune system to be stronger, to be more efficient, to be better connected. So there's nothing more effective at helping a child really get through an illness and a fever than this list there. And the real foundation of it is that last thing, getting them adjusted. Okay. Understanding fevers from a natural and neurological perspective transforms how we approach this common childhood experience we're all going to face. Rather than fearing fevers, we can recognize them as evidence of a well-functioning neuroimmune system getting organized and getting that intelligent healing response in gear. When we support rather than suppress this process, we honor the body's innate wisdom and help our children develop resilient, self-regulating, strong immune systems. At PX Docs and throughout all of our offices, our approach to fevers is simple. We support the body's natural defenses, provide safe and gentle adjustments to make sure the nervous system is balanced, regulated, and functioning properly, and we empower and educate parents as to other ways that they can safely and naturally support their child through this illness, getting through it as fast as possible while also ensuring that we're building up and strengthening the immune system over time instead of short-circuiting it and suppressing it. And of course, there's going to be times when fever really gets rolling and our children need help from medications and other interventions, but they should always be used as a last resort instead of a first option. The next time your child develops a fever, remember that it's their nervous system and immune system working together to create an internal environment where pathogens and the bad guys are eliminated and the immune system is activated and made stronger. By getting your child checked and adjusted on the regular and supporting them with natural immune system boosters, rest, and so forth, you can help them not only overcome the current illness, but to come out stronger and more resilient on the other side. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Do you have a question that you would like to submit? Either send it to support@pxdocs.com with the subject Ask Dr. Tony, or head on over to our socials at PXDocs, where you can submit your question in our stories every single week. Every kid counts and every family counts, so let's leave no questions left unanswered. If you loved this episode and you want to help us reach more kids, we would so appreciate if you left a review and a rating on your favorite platform. God bless, be well. We'll see you on the next one.